Finally, I am back on the YouTube live stream looking extra crispy, not potatoey like I was Friday night. I don't know what the hell happened on Friday night, but it was not a good experience. I apologize for not being able to have Friday Night Viper here on YouTube, but my live streaming was just not agreeing with me. I think my internet connection was kind of jacked up on Friday night, but we are looking good tonight. We are looking buttery smooth. Audio seems to be buttery smooth. We are in the building, and we have the return of VypDrive going down. It is happening right now. Appreciate you guys tuning in. We're not going to waste a lot of time tonight. We're going to get into it. This one should be a fascinating conversation. So let's start this party. So, this is VypDrive episode 147, and with 147 returns the general of the tech rant. Oh yes, he's here, he's live, he's on VypDrive, which starts now. What's up, people? This your boy Viper, the man about tech, and welcome back to another episode of VypDrive. This is the podcast about tech, hosted by the man about tech. And today, my good friend, the general of the tech rant, is back. He's here. My man Trenton, a.k.a. Mr. Tech Rant, is back in the building. What's up, bro? How you doing?
Yo, man, what's going on? Those intros, I swear to God, they make me laugh.
Make you laugh. Hopefully they get you ready for a conversation. That's what I'm talking about. I appreciate you coming back, man. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
I know it's been a while since I did a podcast, but I appreciate you making the time. So I want to start off with a conversation that we were having last night in the Tech Tuber Lounge on Clubhouse. So we were talking about the Apple ecosystem, and me and you were kind of at odds because I was saying that actually I was responding to the video that Travis MCP did about the problem with the Apple ecosystem and how everything works so well, everything like seamlessly works together. But he was like, he felt trapped because it's so nice, but nobody else is like doing anything close to the Apple ecosystem. And since everything works so well, he felt like he couldn't get out of the ecosystem. So my point was, if everything works and everything meets and exceeds your expectations, why are you looking to leave? And I think that's when you kind of brought up the point where it's not perfect. There are issues with the ecosystem, things that you think that could be done better, this, that, and the other. And I think I made the point I think I said something to the effect of, if there's something about the Apple ecosystem that you don't like, then you got Android. But then you made the point where that's all good and well, but that doesn't help me because iOS is only on iPhone and no other OEM can make iOS for their devices. That's only an Apple thing. So can you elaborate on the point that you were making last night?
So to kind of put this in an example per se, so right now you have Apple, you have their ecosystem, you have iOS, iPadOS, and everything is owned, run, and controlled by Apple. Now, to kind of make a comparison, you got Tesla, right? Tesla that's all you got is Tesla as far as your mainstream electric vehicle. So if you are a fan of Tesla and you buy into Tesla and you invest into Tesla, naturally by comparison, you're going to look at other cars, especially if you're coming from like a gas power car, and there's certain features that they have that are mainstream with cars, right? And then you're with Tesla, and it's not that you want to leave Tesla, you just want them to have the other features that are mainstream. And it really doesn't make a lot of sense when people have this conversation and it's like, you know what? I don't like the fact that the Tesla Model 3 doesn't have a speedometer directly in front of me. I have to look over to the right into that big, iPad of a screen or whatever. And then the first part of the conversation comes up. It's like, oh, well, you can just leave. And I'm like, well, no, that's not the conversation. The conversation isn't, hey, I'm trying to leave what I like. I'm trying to leave the company. I'm just trying to ask a question or point out a concern of, hey, this affects people. It's not all perfect sunshine and rainbows. And I'm trying to look at it like, why don't we change this, or why isn't this fixed for the better? And so I kind of feel I feel a lot how Travis felt, because I watched this video and there's a lot of things that you look at and you're just like, yeah, that totally makes sense. But it's also a trap, because I can't go anywhere else to use the tools that I'm currently using. So on one hand, it's like, okay, do I just shut up and deal with it, which is pretty much the attitude that's normally thrown to me online, or do I actually say something about it, because I know that there's other people out there who are like-minded like me that are probably experiencing the same thing.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's a very drawn out answer to it, but yeah.
No. I appreciate that. Okay, so I agree with you that there are definitely things that could be improved, that could be done better within Apple and their ecosystem. I'm not going to debate that. That's true. I mean, I have my own complaints. I've been complaining for the longest time that we didn't have picture in picture on iPhone, and it wasn't until iOS 14 that we actually got that. So that was a change that Apple made within the OS that it took them years to get to, but they finally made that change last year. So in that respect, I completely get where you and Travis are coming from. I think my big issue with stuff like this is Apple, they're the number one tech company in the world. iOS is preferred by a lot of people, and Apple does a lot of things right. But somehow, because Apple is so good and they have the dominance that they have, people want to chip at the armor. They want Apple to open up more. And then when Apple doesn't open up more, people want to penalize Apple. They want to break Apple up. They want to accuse Apple of having a monopoly when in actuality they don't. But they want to try to chip away at what Apple has built. And I'm like, why the hell are y'all trying to go after them just because they got so good at what the product that whatever it is that they have out there? Their customer service is legendary. Their software is top notch. And even if there are a few problems within the ecosystem, which I'm not going to argue, by and large, it's good and it works well. But people are constantly attacking Apple. They want Apple to open up, even though that's not their business model. That's not how they have their situation set up. And my thing is, if you want a more open ecosystem or you want a more open system of software, you got Android, you got Windows. You don't have to deal with Apple. You don't have to deal with iOS or Mac OS. So I think that's where I'm coming from with this situation.
Yeah, like I'm not calling for Apple to be particularly open, or to like, give their software to the mass public or whatnot. Um, my main point, and I think Travis's main point, is just coming from the base of a user who has basically been within both systems. So a lot of times I look at it like this. I'm not trying to make Apple Windows, and I'm not trying to make Windows Apple. What I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to highlight some of the things that would make life easier or more intuitive, because that was pretty much Apple's message in the past, was to make things easier on the regular person. And they just, it's certain things that they exclude that I either question, or it's not exactly the easiest route to go about. And that's just kind of where I live in that lane per se. Like, I'm cool with Apple. I do have some issues with um, the the repairability of Apple devices, but I'm just talking about the general interface per se. I'm not saying open up the doors. What I'm saying is just like, okay, Apple, you've been doing this for so long, and it's not that it's because it's the best thing to do. It's because A, we don't have a choice to do it any other way different, or B, people have given up on talking about it, and they're just saying to themselves, that's just the Apple way. Apple's going to do whatever they want to. um, I mean, like, for example, if you roll back in time when Apple got rid of the headphone jack, there were a lot of people that didn't want the headphone jack to go away. And it's not because they didn't want to go into the future. It's not because they were hating on Apple. It was because the headphone jack was essential to what they were using. They liked having Apple and iOS or the iPhone, and it had a headphone jack. You had people that had iPads that were using, POS systems or whatnot. And so sometimes they go back and forth in between the two. It was real convenient to pull out your phone, have a headphone jack in the bottom, plug in your card reader, and go from there. And that's like I said, that's the vocal minority that kind of gets thrown under the bus because you have things that are a utility, you have things that people use and they like, even within the system. But if Apple says we're getting rid of it, you have no recourse if you stay with Apple. Now, sure, could you jump ship and go to Android? Yes. Could you jump ship and go to Windows? Sure. But I think that sends the wrong message overall. It's not, hey, we're not dealing with the problem. We're just going to say, hey, go somewhere else. Like we're not going to talk about this. We're not going to deal with it. And some people they're okay with it, but there's another group of people like me and other people that just they don't agree with it. And it's very off-putting to have it kind of just shoved down our throats like, hey, this is a problem, but we're not going to acknowledge that this is a problem per se.
Right. All right. So, from my perspective, understanding what you guys were saying better now, I definitely agree with you that telling somebody to go to Windows or Android doesn't fix the inherent problems that Apple has in their walled garden and in their ecosystem. Uh, Perfect example of this was the Wall Street Joanna Stern. I think it was like 2 years ago when the butterfly keyboards were defective and keys were not working and things like that. She wrote out an entire article on the broken keyboard. And it was so crazy looking at the article because there was obviously missing letters because the keyboard broke. That led Apple to make a change and re-implement their older style keyboard before the butterfly keyboard was a thing, because obviously there was an inherent problem with the design and the mechanism of the butterfly keyboard. So because she put visibility on that, and because a lot of people complain about that, that led Apple to go ahead and make that change and switch out the keyboard to a model that had been known to work in the past, and that's where we're currently at right now with the MacBook moving forward. So I definitely agree that if something is not working correctly in the ecosystem, by all means highlight that so Apple can go ahead and make that change. I myself recently brought a pair. Actually, I got two pairs now, like a moron, but I have two pairs now of AirPods Max. And I have issues with both of them condensating if I wear them for a long period of time. I cannot wear my AirPod Max for an extended period of time unless I have a hat on under them. Because if I don't wear a hat on under them, they will condensate. Now, Apple has not addressed this because I don't think enough people have had the issue, but I have shown it's an issue. Other people have sent me tweets showing that they are having the issue. So there's definitely an issue there with the AirPod Max condensating. This is something that Apple will need to address in the next version of the headphones. Otherwise, it's just not a good look. So to that point, I definitely, again, I agree with you and I agree with Travis that when we can identify problems like that with product or software in their ecosystem, we definitely have to call that out. And like you were saying, telling somebody to go to Windows or go to Mac, or telling somebody like me to go to the Sony headphones or go to the Surface headphones, that's not going to solve the problem. The problem's not going to go away because we're telling people to go to a different operating system or a different pair of headphones. Apple needs to address these issues because that's the only way that they're going to get better, and that's the only way that they're going to be able to better provide the best customer service experience possible.
Right, and most of the complaints and most of the time people bring stuff up is it's not because they hate Apple. A lot of people think when I talk about certain things about Apple, I'm hating on Apple. If I hated Apple, I wouldn't own their products. Most of the people who are bringing the stuff up, they're not talking bad about Apple or anything. because they don't like Apple. It's because they own the products. People who own Apple products, people who own Samsung products, people who own LG, those are the ones who are more vocal than anyone else, because a troll, they'll come through, they'll say one or two things, and then they'll go on their merry way and they'll find something else to troll on. But the people who really care and who really use the product and really spent their money and invested in it, those are the ones that are going to have the loudest voices. And that's with anything. That's if you work in a job, if that's, a certain TV or a car you own, you as the owner are going to know more in and out and have, more criticisms per se about a product than someone who just gets on the internet, they click on there and they see, okay, this phone's $1,000, I'm not buying it. Whereas you, as the person who bought the phone for $1,000, have more reasons to say why you're not going to buy another $1,000 phone next year.
Yeah, right. And you make very good points. Shout out to the 29 of you all who are watching the podcast live on YouTube. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of VypDrive. If you would like to support the podcast, the super chat open. The super chat option is open. It is not required, but anything that you are willing to contribute is greatly, greatly appreciated. So thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of VypDrive. Appreciate you guys hanging out each and every time I go live with the podcast. Shout out to those of y'all who are listening on audio only this week. Thank you for listening to another episode of VypDrive with me and my man Trenton, Mr. Tech Rant. If you want to go check out Tech Rant channel, his info will be in the show notes. So definitely go down there, check him out. He is legit. If you would like to support the podcast, there should be a Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. It is not required, but anything that you are willing to contribute, greatly, greatly appreciated. If you happen to be listening on Apple Podcasts, please consider leaving a rating or review as it helps more people discover the show, helps us get back into the top 200 of tech podcasts on Apple. So if you are listening on an Apple device, and most of you are, please consider leaving a rating or review. And thank you for listening to another episode of VypDrive. And for those of y'all that are watching live, if you want to go check out Tech Rant channel, it is hot linked in the title of this podcast. So just click on his name in the title, and it will take you right to his YouTube channel. So,
yep.
Now we got to talk about something that we have both done recently on YouTube. And again, we seem to be like on the opposite ends of the spectrum, but you know what? That's why I like talking to you, because me and you, we disagree on some things. So I made a video recently with my opinion that I believe that Apple leaks are best for business. And I think even before I made that video, you made a video rant talking about how leaks were ruining the tech space and things like that. So, Trent, the reason why I believe that leaks are good for business is because they set expectations for events. So when we have these events, I have an idea of what's going on. Now, I'm not saying I want to know everything, because I don't want to know everything that's coming, but I do like having an idea of what's coming. I kind of liken it to like watching a movie trailer. It doesn't give away the entire movie, but it gives me an idea what to expect when I walk into the theater and things like that. So I like that. The other thing is that it kind of gives companies a way to put ideas out there so they can get that preliminary consumer feedback, so they can know whether or not to continue with the R&D of developing that product or whatever it is that they're leaking. Because nobody wants to waste time developing R&D and pouring millions of dollars into something only to find out that the mass public hates it and doesn't want nothing to do with it anyway. So I feel like some of these companies intentionally leak that stuff to get that early feedback. And like I said, overall, I think leaks are just fun. They kind of spice up the tech space a little bit. Again, I don't want to know everything that's happening, but it is nice to have an idea. It is nice to have the leaks out there. It gives us something to talk about, things like that. So obviously, I know that you do not like leaks. So can you talk to us about what it is about leaks that you don't like?
So how do I say this to where it makes sense? I don't particularly hate leaks, even though I probably said that in some sort of form or whatnot. And this would be somewhat of a clarification on that. I don't hate leaks. I hate the effect of leaks and the byproduct of leaks sometimes. So The thing about leaks for me is, I mean, one, me personally, I would rather just be surprised per se because we put so much stock, and maybe this is on us as human beings or whatnot. We put so much stock in these Apple events, right? So it's just like, for example, the new um, Godzilla versus Kong movie's coming out. I'm really excited for that, but God forbid if I don't go on the internet and someone's like trying to ruin it for me by throwing out all these different things like, hey, you see at this point in the trailer, at this one little millisecond, that lets you know that this certain character is magic. Like, no, stop, don't do it. But the um the side effect that I see of leaks are the expectations. So it's a lot like, hey, expect this at the Apple event, expect this at the Apple event, expect this at the Samsung event, expect this at the Samsung event. And those expectations get driven out of control. And when I say get it driven out of control, it's like we get a leak about something, and instead of taking that leak and just looking at it like, okay, hey, this is a thing, um, it's kind of cool or whatnot, or just kind of just taking it with a grain of salt. We don't do that. We pump it up. Like we take it and we run with it, and then we throw our own theories into it, and we throw a lot of our own wishes and concerns into it as if those things are going to happen. And it creates a very unreasonable expectation on the regular person or even people who are fans of the product. And we ramp it up so hard and higher and higher and higher. We get to the event, and it's like, okay, if Apple comes out on stage and they meet those expectations, woohoo, Apple's the greatest thing in the world. I was right. My track record is amazing and all that, this and the other. If they don't do it, we just trash Apple. We slam them for not meeting an expectation that we fabricated out of nowhere based off of one leak. And then there's the whole aspect of, okay, there's a leak. Is the leak accurate? Is it not accurate? You could have a leak that comes out where Apple is indeed working on such and such thing, and they're supposed to come out with such and such thing, but then life happens, or Apple decides to course correct or turn around and they decide to, cancel a product, and then people are mad because we put this expectation into people. Now, a lot of people can look at it like, well, hey, you're a person, you should know better. But when when something's constantly being driven in your face by multiple people, you just have a tendency to sort of kind of roll with it. So that's just my thing is like the consequences of the leaks. Like if it were like a movie trailer and Apple was putting this out, then it'd be a little bit, easier to resonate with. But the fact that we have to have a whole website that has to track how accurate someone is, or the fact that you can create a Twitter account and put a tweet that says, "Hey, the iPhone 13 is getting USB-C," then and the entire world and the news publications lose their mind because they don't want to write somebody off and say that they're wrong, but they could have been right, and it just becomes a whole mess.
So our dude John Prosser, who is probably one of the more prolific Apple leakers out there, he has said this on his YouTube channel before about how people pump up these leaks and then they get mad at the brands like Apple when the leaks aren't delivered on at the event. And that is 100% on the people who are consuming the leaks. That's not on Apple. That's not on Samsung. That's not on anybody but the people who are thinking that these leaks are going to be 100% accurate. If we go to that appletrack.org site, there is no leaker that is being tracked that is 100% accurate. So there's going to be some inherent wrong leaks anyway. So anything that is leaked should be taken with a grain of salt. And these sites like Forbes out here with these clickbaity articles talking about some iPhone 13 confirmed when the damn thing ain't even been announced yet, it's kind of ridiculous. As I said in my videos, and I'll say again, and as Marquez and John Prosser said in their videos, nothing is confirmed until Apple goes out on stage at their event and make it official. So it doesn't matter what I say, Trenton says, Prosser says, Gurman says, all of that stuff is rumor and speculation and leaks and whatnot. Nothing is official, nothing is confirmed until Apple confirms it on stage at the event. And I think more people need to realize that when they're taking these leaks and consuming them and getting excited, it's okay to get excited. It's okay to take the leak for what it is, but be sure to take it for what it is. It's rumor, it's conjecture. It's not official until we get to the event.
Yeah. So another byproduct of this, which I find quite hilarious, is it happens every single event, and you can go on Twitter, you can see this. Whenever the event happens, and let's say everything was leaked, right? Because everybody has to know everything, everybody wants to know everything ahead of time. Okay, cool, fine. But you get to the event and Apple's up on stage or Samsung's up on stage and they're bringing all this stuff out in the event like they're supposed to. And I will constantly see the tweets start to come out. Okay, that's fine, it's cool, but what else you got? What else is coming around the corner? What else? Where's the surprise in the event? It's like there is no surprise. All the leaks were ruined, and then everybody's like mad at Apple because they're waiting for the one more thing, and it's like, no, you already opened up all the Christmas presents. Okay, if you go under the Christmas tree and you look at every single Christmas present that's there, Santa Claus isn't going to magically show up with another present that you already didn't peek at. And it happens every single, oh my God, this event is so boring. And it's not that they're saying that the event is boring because of the presentation. It's not saying that the event is boring because Apple didn't innovate or Apple didn't do a different curve or they didn't give us 120 hertz. They're not saying it's bored because of that. They're saying they're bored because they already know everything.
Right. Here's the other thing about the whole leak situation. If you are one of those people that do not like leaks, you hate leaks, you can avoid them. At this point, you know where they're coming from. You know which publications report on them, so avoid them. So there are a lot of people who watch WandaVision, the finale, the moment Disney Plus dropped it at 2 a.m. Central Time on Friday morning or whatever the case may be. And I knew that if I went looking for spoilers before I got a chance to watch it, I could find them. But I did not want to be spoiled. So I knew what to avoid so I would not be spoiled before I watched the finale myself. And the same thing goes for leaks and leakers. If you know who's going to be leaking the information, then you should know that don't follow those people. As much as we love John Prosser, and I watch John Prosser videos, you know that John Prosser is one of the most prolific Apple leakers in the world. Why on earth would you go watch his videos if you want to avoid leaks? Why would you do that? Don't watch his videos. It's that simple. You know that Max Weinbach is the most prolific Samsung leaker in the world. Why are you following him on Twitter if you hate leaks? That is literally what he does. He is a Samsung leaker, and you know that. Why are you following him on Twitter? Mark Gurman, the best Apple reporter on God's green earth, is another person who will leak Apple information. Why the hell are you reading his columns or following him on Twitter if you don't want the leak? So there are ways to avoid this information if you want to avoid it. But I think, Trent, you were the one who said in a conversation the other day that if people aren't avoiding it, then they must want the damn leak. So don't complain when you get to the event and you know everything per se, because you did not actively avoid the leak, even though you know where the information is coming from.
So on one hand, yes, that is completely true. You do have a lot of people that they kind of just do it to themselves per se. And those are the ones I don't understand. Those are the ones that are coming out saying this is boring, this is stupid, this is a waste of my time when they were actively seeking out the leaks anyway. However, the amount of information, the amount of leaks, the amount of people who see leaks as a way to leapfrog themselves into notoriety, popularity, easy views, whatever you want to call it, makes that somewhat difficult. And YouTube kind of contributes to that in somewhat of a, natural type of way because, like, if you make a video about leaks, and this is not to, disparage anyone who makes a video about leaks. If you make a video about leaks and you generate um, watch time, if you generate click through rate, YouTube says, okay, I'm going to show this to more people. And unless you go unless you go directly into your recommended and start hitting don't recommend channel or start hitting I don't want to see this, and you select the option of either A, I already watched it, or B, you just don't want to see it in general, there's so many mechanisms that feed you this because you are someone that watches Samsung stuff. Not that you watch Samsung leaks or not that you watch Apple leaks, but it's fed to you based off of what you're already looking at and all of these other forces that are driving the attention and the clicks. Because every day on my phone, on my Google phone, and on another one of my Android phones, and I swipe to the left, I just like to read through like the curated news, and I have to constantly go in there and tell them, okay, I don't want to see this, I don't want to see this, I don't want to see that, but I'm seeing it more and more, even though I never asked for it. Like it's something that it's being pushed, even if you don't want it. So trying to avoid all of it is like, okay, I need to go onto YouTube. I need to open up an incognito tab so I can see what the rest of the world is seeing. So it's not looking at my history or looking at, hey, this person might want to see this. And then, same thing with like Forbes and all these other news sites and stuff. It's like some of them, they're so large that you can't avoid them unless you make a considerable effort to avoid certain things. And then, especially on Twitter, I honestly would have to mute. I would have to mute half of the people I follow because it's not that they're retweeting because they're trying to show the leak to the world. A lot of times people retweet because they're excited about something, or they retweet something because they want to show support to somebody else, or they agree with it. But then you're just going through your feed and you just see this, and you're just like, oh man, So it's not always completely avoidable.
Hmm. Hmm. There's definitely some truth to that, but by and large, I am of the mindset that if you want to avoid leaks, you can do it. So let's talk about probably one of the most leaked things in the last 10 years: Avengers Endgame. People were seeing that movie 5 days before its official release, and you better believe they were online leaking all the tea. They were spilling all the tea before it officially released that weekend. I avoided that. It's like the plague, Trenton. You understand? I made a concerted effort to avoid all the in-game leaks because I knew it was coming. Now, Twitter is my home. Okay, I'm on
Hmm.
Twitter, but and that's where it was getting leaked the most. I made sure that I put word. I did what you said. I muted anything that had to do with in-game. I muted that stuff. I did not want to see any spoilers until I went to go see the movie myself. But again, like you said, that does take a concerted effort to stop that stuff from being shown to you if you don't want to see it. But it is definitely possible to avoid this stuff if you really want to. Now, it might be a lot of work, but it's not impossible. You just got to stay away. But I understand
Right,
what you're
right.
saying, though, that it is very difficult these days because, like you said, it's coming from so many directions that you really can't block it from all directions.
Yeah, it's the thing I'm trying to highlight is the practicality in what you have to do to avoid it. Like, a lot of times we'll kind of just draw a line in the sand of like yes or no or black and white, and I'm like, all right, well, here's like here's like the stuff in between that. So, are leaks bad? Yes or no? And I'm like, they're not horrible, but there are some issues. So this is what I see, and that's kind of where I go from that.
The other problem trend is that I think that for the people that don't like leaks, you all are a very vocal minority because leaks are a huge business. Like you said earlier, people are practically building businesses and making their name off of leaks. These leaks are being consumed from every different direction. And if we know anything about supply and demand, Trenton, if there is no demand, there will not be a supply. So obviously, there must be a huge demand for these leaked and leaked information. I mean, you got some publications that pay like thousands of dollars to have early access to that information about iPhone if they can get it. So because the leaked information is in such high demand, like you said, it's hard to avoid because everybody's covering it. I mean, somebody even said in our chat earlier here on the podcast that Marquez covered leaks recently. So, and Marquez normally doesn't cover leaks. So this stuff is in high demand, and because it's in such high demand, it, like you said, it's very difficult to avoid.
Yeah, and the the other side of this coin that I hate is the demand is so great that people are willing to click on anything,
Mm.
and there are people out there that are willfully willfully ready to give you that click and give you that trick and give you that bait and switch and keep on moving. Now that all goes into a whole, different set of morals and what drives people, and what you need to stay afloat and all that stuff. But it's just, to me, it's just sad now that people feel like they have to trick someone to get somebody in the door and then not deliver. Because I still, every once in a while, I will go on to one of these sites, because I have a channel where I cover the M1 Max, and then, like, someone will say something like multiple users are having an issue with the M1 Mac. Now, I'm not going to just write that off, because if it's an issue, I want to know about the issue. I want to tell people about it. I want to educate them on it, and I want to tell them how to move on it. But when I see a headline that says multiple users are having an issue, and then I click into the article, and the article says two people have reported an issue, and then even the issue doesn't even match the severity of the title or whatever they put out there. Now it's like, okay, now I'm upset because now I have to go into calm everybody down mode, because I have people, they're like, hey man, is this really a thing? Is this going on? Is this? And it's like, they didn't create that article to raise an issue. They didn't. They created that article to garner attention, to put
Yep.
fear in people's faces.
Yep.
And then the same people who created that article that are using those same machines, they're not selling off their MacBooks or their M1 Max or any other problem that
No.
they said that they're having an issue with. They're just like, oh, hey, this is messed up. Apple, how dare you do this? Oh, I'm still keeping my MacBook though.
Mm.
And I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
what?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the aspect of it that I don't like, is where you intentionally rile people up for no reason whatsoever, just so you can get your click, just so you can get your article out there or whatever. That part I don't agree upon.
No, God, I'm sorry. Sorry. Oh, something in my throat. Something in my throat. Sorry, y'all. Something in my throat. Whew, man. Gotta stop. I gotta calm that down. But yeah, I agree, man. It's rough out here. The clickbait article from these publications, man, they're ruthless, man. They prey on people's fears and just apprehensions, and they go after you with the clickbait, and then you click on the article and it's complete monkey crap. And it's just like, what are you put this out here for? Why? This is not it. This is not the thing. Oh, it's not that serious. Like, that's not that serious. But anything for the clicks, man. Anything for the clicks.
Anything, man.
So you, sir, just alluded to the fact that your channel has switched to mostly covering the M1 Max, and I believe that you have an M1 MacBook Air, right?
Yes.
So, how has your experience been with the M1 MacBook Air?
The overall the experience has been pretty good. I've only had maybe about 3 or 4 times over the entire life or the entire time of me owning it where I experienced like an actual crash where it just like locked up. But it wasn't like one of those it locks up and then you can't do anything with it. It's just like, okay, something happened, I can't handle this, and it restarted. But I still had all my stuff saved, so that really wasn't an issue. Um, the fact that this MacBook can last all day, and when I say last all day, I mean you can wake up at 6 a.m. and you can go to sleep at 10 o'clock, and you can have somewhere around 20% battery life left, depending on what you're doing. That is stupidly amazing. And I know everybody talks about the M1 chip and the horsepower and all that stuff. The battery life is the absolute most underrated thing about this because for anybody else that owned like a previous MacBook Air or previous MacBook, if you web surf, depending on which website you go to, the fans are kicking up on an Intel Mac. um,
Mhm.
if you do anything, sometimes if you open up a word processor and you type on it, unless unless you unless you baby the battery of an Intel powered MacBook, the battery life doesn't last that long. Whereas on this, it's just like the only way I can kill the battery life on this is if I start editing in Final Cut and start throwing 4K at it. The instant wait to this is still blowing my mind, and never in my life have I had a laptop that outlasts my phone,
Mm, damn.
which is still a shock to me. I still got like an 11 Pro Max laying around here from before or whatnot. I could be using that phone and using my MacBook Pro at the same time. The Pro Max is going to die before this MacBook does. I've never experienced that before in my entire
That is
life.
craziness. That is absolute craziness that your MacBook lasts longer than your phone. Like you said, I don't think we've ever heard anything like that before. That is bananas.
And the crazy part is this is a MacBook Air. The M1 MacBook Pro is rated at a higher battery life than the Air.
Mm-hmm.
That blows my mind. That to me is still the craziest thing ever about this entire thing. That if I had to pick the number one feature of this for anybody who's a student or a professional or anybody else that's jumping into a MacBook, I'm like, look, if you want battery life, go with this. If you want your the MacBook, the screen and everything is on before you even flip it open. Most laptops, if you close them, they go into sleep mode. You open it up, it still takes a minute. This has the same wake up speed as an iPhone or as a Galaxy. A lot of people like their phones because they're instant. You can turn them on immediately. With this computer, I can open it up. It's already at the screen. I can use Touch ID. Bam, I'm in there. It's like the fastest opening operating system that I got in front of me that's a desktop.
I know the feeling because I have an Xbox Series X that operates similarly. I hit a button, it's on in less than a second. It's freaky. I love it.
Yeah.
So,
And that's the cool thing about it.
and it's cool as hell. And it never gets old. Like that, it never gets old. So I want to talk about a video that you made a little while back. When these MacBooks first came out, these M1 MacBooks, a lot of people were having like an internal debate with themselves. Should they get the 8 GB of RAM MacBook or 16 GB of RAM MacBook, M1 MacBook? Why can I not talk? 8 GB MacBook, M1 MacBook, or 16 GB M1 MacBook. Yeah, you made a video talking about this. So tell us about which way you would go or which way you actually went.
So to break this down into two routes. The first lane I'm going to take is The reason why I went with the base model, which has 8 gigs, was because I could not afford to get 16 gigs. So to go from 8 to 6 to go from 8 to add on 16 is an extra $200, I believe. And then when you throw in the tax for where I live at, that's another $14 on top of it. So that's another $214. Also, this is a MacBook Air that I do not plan on keeping for the rest of my life. I do not plan on keeping this for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years that other people keep it. I actually plan on either getting a Mac Mini, possibly, or getting an iMac, or maybe even getting another MacBook Pro and have that being my main editing machine. And then the other part was I wanted to start covering M1 and started talking about M1. And this was the cheapest way I could get into M1 without having to throw my wallet out of the window. Now, the other part of the conversation is a lot of times we will make content on MacBooks or phones, but we'll never cater to certain people because we always want to just kind of leave it up to interpretation, or sometimes we're afraid to tell people exactly what to get in that fear of we told the person to get the wrong thing for their use. So I broke it down to where it's like, okay, if you're a student, if you are someone who watches YouTube, or if you're someone that does not keep your MacBooks for a very long period of time and you just want an Apple product, then go with 8 gigs. Like, don't spend $200 on something you're never going to fully utilize. You know, a lot of times we'll talk about how these products can edit 8K video. Everyone isn't editing 8K. Like I said, if you're someone that's going to use a laptop like a regular person, don't spend the extra money on something you're not going to use. But at the same time, if you're someone that's going to keep this for a very long period of time, get the 16 gigs because, contrary to popular belief, 99% of the world does not know that you cannot upgrade the RAM or the SSD after you purchase this, because most of the world has pretty much been used to the fact that they can buy a laptop, and then 2 years later, once it starts to slow down, they can take the back off, they can put another SSD in there, or they can replace their SSD, or they can put in more RAM, or they can replace their RAM. And I've seen too many times where people go out and buy the MacBook and no one told them, not even on Apple's website did they tell them that the RAM isn't user replaceable unless you go really searching through that. And people will get to 60 or 90 days later and they're like, well, hey, I want to put more RAM in my laptop. And then someone's like, well, you can't. And then they're like, what do you mean I can't? So that's where that video idea came out. And I was like, look, do this based off of your use case scenario. Don't go based off of my use case scenario. Don't go based off of MKBHD or anybody else. Go based off of you. What are you going to do with this laptop and spend your money according to what you want?
Yep. And I think that's something that a lot of us tech reviewers don't really take into consideration when we're doing these videos. We can talk about our use cases and our scenarios all damn day, but it's not about us. It's about the people who are watching our content. What are their use cases? What are their scenarios? So we definitely need to be more mindful when we are putting out the content and be more thoughtful of the viewers and what their work case, what their work life scenario might be when they're using these products. So definitely agree with you on that. So we are coming up on the end of the podcast, but I'm gonna get you out of here on this. I know this is a topic that is definitely near and dear to your heart. The right to repair. Oh boy, yeah. Y'all see that shit? That sheep's laugh. You already know. So it's kind of funny because I think I kind of got put on a YouTube map because I made a video 3 years ago now, I think, when Line Tech Tim had the issue with his iMac Pro breaking and Apple would not tell him or they wouldn't give him the parts to repair it. And that became a whole big thing. And John Proctor ended up retweeting that video for me. And the video has like 10,000 views and things like that. But I am of the mindset that you should be able to repair your own damn computer. Apple should sell you the parts to repair your computer, but Apple doesn't. You have to take it to an authorized repair place in order for your MacBook or whatever to be repaired, which I think is a bunch of monkey crap. And I'm the captain of Team Apple, and I think that's a bunch of monkey crap. But I think you even have a stronger stance about the whole right to repair situation. So talk about how you feel about it.
So the whole right to repair thing is a very muddy, slippery slope because I've heard both sides of the argument. I've heard where they're like, well, Apple doesn't want people to open it up and then damage the system and then bring the system in and have them try to repair it. And there's all these issues where you can electrocute yourself and do all this crazy stuff. I'm like, look, a 5-year-old can put RAM inside of a computer.
Yep.
Like, it's not this super magical, like, you don't need a degree. You don't need a certification to take a screwdriver to a screw. It's not a thing, but a lot of times Apple will present that like these are very fine-tuned, well-oiled machines that require like no, they're computers. They're consumer devices, okay? But my whole thing with right to repair is okay, if Apple wants to go down this route of authorized user or authorized repair person, I'm totally cool with that because there are times where I don't want to look up how to repair my MacBook. I don't want to take a screwdriver to it. But what I do want to do is I want to go to the local dude up the street and go get my MacBook fixed instead of having to either send it to Apple or go directly to Apple. The other thing that I would love to not be able, or the thing I would love to not have to do, is I would love to not have to get Apple Care because Apple has gotten to the point where so many things on their devices are not repairable that if you do not get Apple Care, they punish you financially for not getting Apple Care. Perfect example. The back of the what you call it? The iPhone 11 Pro Max. If you shatter that glass and you don't have Apple Care, you got to pay like $450 for that.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of designed that in a way to where it makes it more expensive to repair it if you don't opt in for certain things. Or another thing that came up in the past, and this was an issue, was Apple, and they did this through their software. Apple made it to where you can't take a battery out of another Apple device, an official battery, even if the device is brand new, you can't take that battery out and put it in an iPhone to repair it. If you do, then the phone will work, but your battery health is going to be gone. And what happens whenever you try to go sell a phone? What's the first thing that people look for? Battery health. That discourages you from selling that phone or from someone buying that phone. Now that person is like, no, I don't want to buy that phone. I want to go to Apple to buy the phone. So yeah, it's a business tactic, but it really goes against a lot of what they say about, hey, reduce, reuse, recycle. We don't want to put a charger inside the box because we want to minimize our impact on the earth and all that or whatnot. But you want people to keep coming back to you and buying a whole nother device because you don't want to let people repair their stuff. It's a business model, but I still feel like that's kind of wrong.
Yeah, like I said, I agree. I understand where Apple is coming from with it because they don't want people tampering with the things, and like you said, then trying to take it into Apple to get repaired because that's a recipe for disaster. But at the same time, if you're spending like $1,200, $2,000, $5,000 for the computer, you should be able to repair the computer. And let's be honest. Nobody who doesn't know what the hell they're doing is going to try to crack open that thing and fix it anyway. So chances are, if somebody's willing to crack that bad boy open and fix it, chances are they know what the hell they're doing. So the whole right to repair thing is kind of crazy to me. I like I said, I know what they're going on. They want you to be more dependent on them as far as either getting the repair done or having to buy a whole completely new device. And it's a business thing, and it is what it is. But at the same time, again, there are people out there that can definitely, who are definitely capable of fixing their devices if they need to do that, and they should be allowed to do that. And Apple should have parts available for them to do that, because that's the other thing. You can't get parts from Apple. You have to go to that authorized repair person if you want to get that repaired. The Apple will not sell you the part, which I think is a bunch of crap. But hey, it is what it is, I guess.
I mean, even if it's proprietary, right? Still sell the parts. What's
Yeah,
wrong with that? Like
right.
you're still getting your money. I don't, you know,
Yeah,
and I don't know. Like I said, it's just when you look at things beyond the US, because a lot of times we look at Apple and we look at the US, and a lot of people have their opinions of, well, I got an Apple store right up the street. Well, I can, do this, that. There's people out there that there's not an Apple store within a 100 miles. Within 100 miles. Like they
Woo.
literally, the only way they can get their stuff fixed is if they stick it in a box, put it, in the postal service, and they got to sit there, hope, wait, and pray until their computer comes back. And it's just like there's so many other things that are easy to fix or easy to repair. Even if Apple said, "Hey, we're not going to sell you the chip. We'll sell you the board, okay? You
Mm,
can go ahead and replace the entire board out. At least do that."
right. That would be much more consumer friendly than the things they got going on right now. Um, and it also lends to this whole idea of a completely portless iPhone that might be coming this year. I'm sorry. My cell phone is my most important gadget I carry on me at all times. If it breaks, I do not have time or patience to completely have to send it off to Apple because I can't repair it myself, because you can't even troubleshoot it if it's completely portless. I can't get behind that. I don't like that prospect. So if Apple is going to come with a completely portless iPhone this year or whenever it happens, they better have some type of infrastructure in place to where we don't have to send the whole damn phone off to get repaired, because that's just not going to work.
But that's the issue that I've been trying to bring up to people when it comes to buying these machines. Like I bought this MacBook Air fully knowing that if anything happens to this MacBook, I'm probably just going to have to buy a whole nother MacBook. And it's like for certain devices, they've become an appliance instead of becoming something that you keep or you repair, you extend the life. It's an appliance. If you go get an iPhone and you get it with, 64 gigs, you're stuck with 64 gigs. Now to point this out, same thing with Samsung, same thing with other, phones that don't have expandable storage. Once you buy something, you get what you get, and then once it dies, it's just dead.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna make it, you know, not a financially viable option for you to repair it. And it's like the only way I can get into something to where I can upgrade it or repair it or do anything with it is I have to spend
Oh,
$5,999 on
ooh,
a Mac Pro to have modularity.
right.
I have to spend the most amount of money to do that. And at that price range, that is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. Apple could sell a desktop, even if they sold it at $2,000, you could have a desktop that you have where you could upgrade the what is it, like the RAM, the processor, but now with them going, the M1 route, who knows? But even then, let's say Apple, they say, all right, we'll give you an iMac Pro that you can repair, you can upgrade. We'll sell you the M1 module, or if you want to go with the M2 module or the M1X module, you screw it in, you install that. It's just like, you know, it's the one thing of modularity where everything else is like sealed and glued shut.
Craziness, man. It's bad. Hopefully, it gets better in the future. But the way that they're creating their chipsets now, I highly doubt it because everything's soldered in these days. So I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon. Shout out to my man Roberto Blake for the 99. He says Apple can and should do better. Guess I'll never be invited to an Apple event for saying that. Probably not. But Mr. Tech Rant, awesome conversation, sir. Thank you for coming back. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me.
No doubt. Again, if you guys want to go check out his channel, if you're watching live on YouTube here, his YouTube channel is actually hot linked in the title. So if you click on his name in the title, it will take you directly to his YouTube channel. Check him out. He is legit. Shout out to those of y'all that watched live today. Thank you guys for watching the podcast. I appreciate you coming back each and every time I go live on this YouTube channel. Again, I apologize for not having Friday Night Viper this week, but my internet was not cooperating properly. But we will definitely be back next Friday night for the show. So appreciate y'all figuring out with me through that. And again, thank you guys for tuning in today for another edition of VypDrive. Shout out to those of y'all who are listening on audio only this week. Thank you for listening to another episode of VypDrive with me and Mr. Tech Rant. Again, if you want to go check out his channel, it will be in the show notes below. Definitely check him out. He is legit. Also, if you want to support the podcast, there should be a Buy Me a Coffee link down there in the show notes as well. It is not required, but anything that you are willing to contribute, greatly, greatly appreciated. If you happen to be listening on an Apple device, like I said earlier, please consider leaving a rating or review. Help people discover the show. Help us get into the top charts on Apple Podcasts. So if you happen to be listening on an Apple device, which most of you are, please consider leaving a rating or review. And thank you for listening to another episode of VypDrive. But until the next time, people, this your boy Viper, the man about tech. You know where to find me. So come back for more.